let's talk about ADHD. I have been navigating ADHD my entire life, but I was diagnosed with it when I was 9 years old, and I was also diagnosed with nervous tics and with Tourette syndrome. And, a lot of these neurodivergencies and nervous system disorders come from child developmental trauma. When you have child or childhood developmental trauma, your body is being bathed in adrenaline, meaning your nervous system and your brain activity are highly activated throughout development. And this has serious repercussions, some of which include brain inflammation and gut inflammation, which actually go hand in hand. They correlate. So I believe without much question that my ADHD, my Tourette syndrome, my nervous tics were born from a biology, a biochemistry that was so volatile from massive amounts of stress hormones from childhood experiences. For me, that had to do with being molested at an early age, going to an abusive daycare. And then later on in middle school, it got even worse as I was further sexually assaulted on 3 different occasions and horribly bullied throughout my entire life because of my body. I was born intersex. So I was born with a hormonal female expression, meaning I made more estrogen than testosterone. So for the first 15 years of my life or so, I felt very female. I looked female at times. I developed breasts and breast tissue. I developed big, wide hips. I couldn't put on muscle. I gained weight very easily and I identified with being female. I was closeted about the identity about being female, but my body was very, very, very much so expressing in a confusing way for a little boy. This would contribute to a lot of self-hatred, a lot of binge eating, a lot of panic attacks, anxiety, suicidal ideation, and lots of bullying. So the more activation I was carrying and holding alone, the worse my tics and my ADHD and my different neurodivergence expressions became. And this is because there was an increase in stress hormones, which increases nerve and brain activity, and an increase in gut inflammation. Studies actually show that excessive amounts of adrenaline will create more hydrogen in your bile, which means when you digest foods, the bile itself can burn the lining of your stomach. This is why so many people with chronic stress and anxiety and trauma, PTSD, have compromised digestive tracts. And mine was horribly compromised most of my life until my 20s, when I started understanding more about nutrition. And when I got into somatic and somatic psychology, particularly somatic experiencing, that mixed with nutrition really helped my body find a deep, deep balance. And my gut issues have resolved beautifully. However, I'm not just focusing on gut issues today. I'm focusing on ADHD because I've had it my whole life. It doesn't go away, but it does drastically shapeshift depending on what you put in your body and how you perceive the world around you. So I want to read something I wrote on Instagram to open this up with. It's called How to Eat When You Have ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD, Tourette's, and nervous tics when I was 9 years old, and I've been thriving with them ever since. Initially, doctors wanted to sedate me with an antipsychotic, and my mother refused. True story. So I went through middle school being tormented for all the uncontrollable facial and vocal outbursts and expressions I would have. I'm grateful to her for declining, however, because I needed to stay present with these expressions so I could learn how to live with them, even though the ADHD felt incredibly impossible to navigate. It was actually harder for me than the tics and the Tourette's. Brain fog, forgetfulness, confusion, sudden freeze, and depression, all of it was and is some of my experience. But I've learned to navigate it with food and somatics. Somatics teach me how to consciously witness my body and stay with it during an ADHD spell, rather than hate on it or just instantly stimulate it, which I did for a long time. Nutrition education has taught me how to eat for my nervous system and my adrenals, which are huge parts of ADHD and ADHD spells, since many of us with ADHD are navigating a dopamine deficient brain. Sugar, caffeine, and even skipping meals can adrenalize us and stimulate dopamine. So we get short bursts of focus and interest, but I've found that nourishing the body can create more sustainable dopamine release. And even those of you who must stimulate to function can still benefit from learning how to balance the stimulated body with simple foods throughout the day, in addition to your stimulants for dopamine and focus and attention. I'm teaching all this in a free webinar titled Food Therapy, Supporting ADHD with Nutrition. If you are listening to this, this takes place on Wednesday, September 24th at 12 p.m. Eastern. If it's not Wednesday, September 24th, hop on. It's completely free. You can go to the link below or go to my website and click on events, and it's right there. Food Therapy Supporting ADHD with Nutrition. Everyone gets a replay, so don't worry if you can't make it live. If it's past the 24th and you're listening to this, there should be a link for you to click as well to see the replay. So what's important to me about this topic, which I have a lot of personal experience with, is understanding, first of all, the brain and the gut connection. When your gut is inflamed, you start to develop what's called leaky gut, which means different toxins and bacteria go into different parts of the intestine and into the bloodstream. And this ends up causing, in addition to many other things, brain inflammation. It can be very, very low level. It can be high level. And everything from ADHD to autism has been studied. And there's a correlation with brain inflammation, some level of it, with these different neurodivergent expressions and conditions, which I think is fascinating. So if we understand that brain inflammation can actually be managed and greatly reduced based on gut inflammation being reduced, what's the common denominator? Two things. One is nutrition. Food will increase gut inflammation or decrease gut inflammation, and food can increase your microbiome. That's all the bacteria, trillions of bacteria and fungi and other little creatures living in your gut. And what this microbiome does, what these bacteria do, is they actually synthesize nutrients and neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are the chemicals in your brain that allow you to focus, that allow you to feel hopeful, that allow you to feel alive and good about the world and yourself. We're talking about dopamine here because dopamine is what is deficient for most people with ADHD. Dopamine is what rewards you and gives you pleasure and gives you interest in a task, especially when the task is boring. Guess how much dopamine your gut makes? 50%. So the dopamine you're storing in your brain that gets released in a big burst because you drank coffee or ate sugar, well, you need to replenish that, and your gut microbiome replenishes it. But if it doesn't replenish it, if there isn't any left, you're going to crave more sweets and sugar and caffeine to stimulate more dopamine release in your brain until you don't have any left and you're just absolutely exhausted and anxious and a mess, which I have been many times in my life when I was still doing that. So a lot of people will focus on stimulants to get through ADHD, brain fog and freeze and overwhelm from all the things coming in, but not having that neurotransmitter to give you the motivation to do all the things coming in. So they build up and you get overwhelmed. And so we stimulate, we get dopamine, then we're able to focus and do something. I have found that nourishing the body is a slower way, but it's a more sustainable way to get dopamine. I mean, you can see how alive I am right now just by recording this. I'm not stimulated right now. I just had an extremely simple balancing meal, but my body has been balanced for so long from my nutrition and from somatic practices, which are part 2, and I'll get to that. But my body's been nourished for so long, especially with a bean-based, plant-based diet, that my gut is thriving. It's a thriving microbiome in there. And my body's able to synthesize these neurotransmitters. Serotonin, which gives you hope, makes you feel happy. 95% of it comes from your gut microbiome. So increasing gut microbiome diversity increases your synthesis, your creation, your ability to produce these important neurotransmitters, which are very, very low or lacking in people with ADHD and other neurodivergences and other people that have brain inflammation or gut issues. It will increase when the microbiome increases. Very important. So that's part 1, food in managing ADHD. Then there's part 2, somatics. Somatic psychology, primarily the branch I'm trained in, somatic experiencing, really teaches you how to witness and speak with your body. So instead of anxiety just taking you over and making all your decisions from being anxious or overwhelmed or depressed, you learn this technology which gives you this ability to witness the anxiety. So I feel anxiety in my chest instead of being anxious. I go to make a decision from the anxious state, rather than, okay, I'm about to make a decision, let me feel from where I want to make it. Somatic experiencing gives us the agency to locate, track sensation as it relates to a certain state, like happiness, pain, grief, anxiety, and then learn how to be with it so it can transform and integrate into something else. So it's not fixed and stuck. Why this is so important for me when it comes to ADHD is when I have a negative perception of the world, which is very natural when you have chronic stress and PTSD, I'm making more adrenaline. And when I don't know how to relate to my sensations or my body's stress, I'm just getting more and more activated, or better yet, my body is getting more activated. More activation means more stress hormones, which means more gut inflammation. So when stress hormones are coming down because I'm applying somatic technologies to my body, and simultaneously I'm applying food practices that lower stress hormones and renourish my gut lining and my microbiome, I have this incredible modality, which I invented called holistic life navigation, which brings these two things together and addresses so many imbalances, particularly ADHD and neurodivergence. And I've seen this help so many people across the board. I go into this so much more in my food therapy session. So depending on what date you're listening to this, if it's before the 24th, dive in and register for free today. If it's after, dive in and get the replay. I want you to see this. It's going to be free either way for any group, whether you're getting it now or later, and see what you get from it. See what you learn from it. But know that my entire 7-week course, which is starting on Monday, October 6th, 2025, that whole 7-week course was designed from this ADHD brain. The practices I teach in that course, the food guidelines I teach, the self-relating philosophies and the holistic philosophies I teach, all helped me get out of my ADHD spells. And when they come, I know how to be with them. So I don't feel shame or judgment or shutdown. I don't overly stimulate myself and then burn out. I know how to manage them. Really? I don't like the word manage. I know how to relate to them. Relating to things you don't like about your body, that's the sustainable way forward to transform something and integrate it so you can thrive with it. So if this reaches you, if you resonate, if you want to learn more, really look into my 7-week course. It's the last one I am teaching for an entire year. I won't be teaching this again until October 2026, I believe. So dive in now. You can even go to the website, holisticlifenavigation.com, and contact us if you have any questions. I'm looking forward to seeing you there at either of these workshops or somewhere else in the future. Thanks for listening today. Thank you for watching today's episode. Please like and subscribe if you found it useful, and let me know in the comments what you want me to cover next. I have developed a 4-week self-paced course that takes 18 years of my personal and professional experience and puts it into one place where you can easily and quickly learn the foundations of recovering from stress and trauma. How does the food you eat affect your stress levels? How do the relationships in your life create stress or peace? How does the relationship you have with your body allow you to feel happier and more settled? I will cover all this and so much more in this 4-week self-paced course. And the best part, it's self-paced. You don't have to sign up at a certain date or finish it at a certain time. It's yours for life, and it's waiting there for you when you're ready to finish it. Throughout this course, I'll be teaching you philosophies and practices that combine my 3 favorite modalities: somatic experiencing, embodied parts work, and nutrition. For more information on this course, click on the link in my episode details.